Truly I tell you, it will be more bearable for Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than for that town. I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. Be on your guard. You will be handed over to the local councils and flogged in the synagogues. On my account, you will be brought before governors and kings as witnesses to them and to the Gentiles. But when they arrest you, do not worry about what to say or how to say it. At that time, you will be given what to say, for it will not be you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. Brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death. You will be hated by everyone because of me. The one who stands firm to the end will be saved. When you are persecuted in one place, flee to another. Truly I tell you, you will not finish going through the towns of Israel before the Son of Man comes. The student is not above the teacher, nor a servant above his master. It is enough for students to be like their teachers and servants like their masters. If the head of the house has been called Beelzebub, how much more the members of his household? So do not be afraid of them, for there is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the roofs. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground outside your Father's care. And even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. Whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. Anyone who welcomes you welcomes me, and anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet as a prophet will receive a prophet's reward, and whoever welcomes a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. And if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones who is my disciple, truly I tell you, that person will certainly not lose their reward.
Good evening, everyone. This is Tired Goth, and you are watching the Academia Gothica computer show. So, I'm over here setting up my bash profile. For those of you who don't know what a bash terminal would look like, it's basically a file that you would be editing to input certain rules, concepts, things you want done into it. So you can write in all sorts of things. You can spring load your applications. You can run automated processes. You can begin the inception of, well, it's kind of repetitive, but you can begin shells and then have those shells pre-programmed with input. So you can actually do a lot in a bash shell. as long as you know how to. And what I'm doing specifically here is setting up what's called a port and process filter. Now, most of this would be pre-programmed into a firewall. I don't know how to do that for an Android, so I am manually setting up the data and hard coding all of the port things that I want to put in there. So essentially this is going to look like a set of Yara rules that are like crudely coded in by hand, if that makes sense. And if you don't know what Yara is, I will explain Yara to you. Yara is a set of filters, parameters, really. And Yara is something similar to what is used in a firewall. And what it does is it takes port information, it takes, I guess you could say, data that you would either like to filter out or allow in. You can program it either way. You can also use Yara to set parameters for other allowances, not having to do with data transfers and ports necessarily, but other things. So there are ways to use Yara in, I guess you could say, different contexts, right? But this particular set of data was inspired by Yara rules that I had written before, and instead of just writing a Yara list, I ended up setting direct instructions into the bash profile. So each time a TermUX, because we're using TermUX for this, each time a TermUX window opens up, it shows the things that were programmed into the bash profile as their default settings as opposed to the default bash profile. So let me just fix this thing because I just realized I did not do this yet. So let me just get this going here. We're done. And thank you for joining my live. It's nice to have you here. Make sure to tap that screen and add some hearts to the screen so I know you're paying attention. Let's see what's going on with this. There we go. I don't know if the show has a title. I literally have no idea. So I guess we'll figure that out in a minute. Anyway, so the way that you can access your bash profile is by going into the etc or etc folder in your user data folder. And the user folder is outside of the home folder in TermUX. So you would have a change directory option to go 2 folders back, and those folders would be side by side with each other. So you can go from there and you would CD into those folders. So you would CD into the etc folder. And then once you're in the etc folder, you would edit the actual file called the bash rc. And sometimes it's bash rc, sometimes it's named differently. It has an extra extension or whatever it looks like. That's your file. So you want to edit it with a text editor, you can edit it with Nano. Now, the thing about editing files is everyone will tell you not to do it. They'll tell you not to destroy the work. It's hilarious because that's like you're supposed to do stuff like that. You're supposed to break things and learn how to fix them. I mean, sometimes it gets difficult and then, you know, people are like, yeah, ask us for help. We'll be there if you... No, do it alone. Do it alone. Get lost in the woods by yourself. The woods of the computer, not the literal woods. But it's the same feeling. Like, do things with an air of caution. Hold on a second, I need a scrunchie. Do things with an air of caution because in the case that you do break something, you're also responsible for fixing it. And you don't want anyone else handling your machine. What they don't tell you about information security is that the very hand that can help you is the same hand that can hurt you. So you do not want to be reliant. You want to be self-sufficient. And if that means you broke something, you have to know how to trace your steps backwards to fix it as well. That is the most optimal and friendly advice I can actually give you for what it is that you're doing, because it's advice that will serve you for your entire life. Yeah. I literally don't know where my scrunchies went. Okay, whatever. That's fine. So, with this said, yes, you will have enemies if you know how to use your technology properly. So what you want to do is you want to know how to navigate your device without the help of anyone. Now, a lot of people will be very helpful, and the reason why they're doing that is likely because they want to know what you know. That's the harsh truth that techies who are giving you good advice don't want you to know. They don't want you to know that they want the upper hand and that they won't tell you that they have it. So with that said, if you want to edit your files, you go ahead, but make sure you have at least one copy of the original file for reference and use purposes in the case of a needed correction. Now let's begin. This is what a bash profile looks like. It looks like a bunch of text, and it has a lot of $signs, numbers, and reference points that look like folders or paths you have seen before. File folder paths are like that thing that you see in Windows where it says C:/ or backslash in that case because it's Windows, backslash, Windows system program files or whatever, blah, 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 backslash, so on and so forth. So these are called directories in Windows. File paths are what they're called in other flavors of operating systems. So the file path for this, if you typed the PWD, would be user, so /usr /etc/ actually no, it's in the etc file, so you would have everything in front of you once you get in, and you would be typing you would type CD, the 2 letters, to get in, and CD is short for change directory. So change directory is a tool that you can use to learn how to navigate your own device before you start doing anything. Change directory is also super effective for what it is you want to change, because if you know how to get to the thing you're trying to change, your life becomes super easy. You don't have to worry about it so much. So with that said, once you're in the bash profile, you can start typing stuff, but you have to have an objective idea of what you're going for. So in this case, I'm setting up blocks for certain things not to be able to access my machine. I'm setting up blocks for the TCP, which is the Transport Control Protocol. I'm setting up TCMP blocks, OMACP blocks, despite the fact that messaging is pretty limited on a netbook, apart from what's installed or whatever's there. And then I'm also setting up blocks for the UDP, or the user datagram profile, and the TCP IP relay. So IP relays also talk about in the conversion, I want to say it's the octets versus the IPv6 alphanumeric combinations of relays between ports and also IP addresses. They interoperate with each other, so if you set certain blocks for ports, subnets, or anything like that, they're going to be somewhere looped in there or like referred to somewhere. Also, there's another thing you can do where you can set a bind to the TCP, I should say, and the VPN cache data. Now, you can experiment with how to write this, like the style of it itself, but what you want to keep in mind is if you set a bind, you want to put, a $sign in front of whatever it is you're listing, however vague or specific. But to err on the side of vague references is probably the best idea, because referring to things that are vague means more data is included in that data set. So once you have that inclusion, it kind of just says, okay, no specifications here, just take this, and just scoop it all into that general instruction, and away we go. And that's basically how that goes. So the TCP IP bind would theoretically be to your VPN. So if you have a VPN that's up and active, you would actually be binding your IP address or your DNS address to the active IP address that's there, which is connected to your VPN fabricated DNS IP. So you would have options to then kind of put the two addresses together, starting from the bash profile or bash direction and listing that's there. And it would look like set bind, $TCP IP. I wrote it like this. I'm not sure how to do it this way yet, but it would be set bind $TCP IP and then 2 colons to port it like in, almost like a Perl script, and then VPN underscore cache underscore data, right? Thank you so much. Thank you for joining my live and for liking my live. So you would include that in the bash profile, because if you ever open up TermUX before you open up your other apps, there's a preset instruction to kind of make that happen. Another way to do that is to simply type set, so for set, it's set bind with a space in between, and then a $ DNS cache underscore, so it's DNS underscore cache, and then you space that apart and type VPN cache data. And what that's going to do is it's going to activate a list of instructions to not only collect the DNS data as it's separate or together, but it's going to bind all of those things together, meaning you're going to have multiple calls for information in order to bring them together in a merge so that the data streams look consistent and they're all encrypted by the same method of encryption. So that's basically what it's going to end up looking like. I don't know if you can actually see it because the text is so tiny, but it's going to be a set of instructions that have all these parameters set for them. So this top set of strings, it's about 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, that said set block TCP, set block TCMP, set block OMACP, and so on and so forth. You would have those blocks in place because you would actually be setting the port filters with a colon following each of those things and then typing out physical port numbers. So for example, if you wanted to block a standard port address, a standard port like thing, you would type 8080 and then redirect that completely. So you would block 8080 because that's actually a Google data stream port, and you don't necessarily want that unless you're a super fan of ClearNet and you like TCP because you use Tor or something. I don't know. Like usually Tor is something you would use in a forced TCP thing. You wouldn't really want to use that for UDP because UDP takes the TCP solid stack of data that's streaming and kind of breaks it into tiny pieces. It's sort of like shattering a set of Legos or something, right? Like if it's a solid Lego block, UDP breaks all those blocks together, breaks them apart, I should say, and like scatters them around. So they're still the same block, it's just not structured that way in a datagram. That's the point of referring to it as a user datagram protocol. It is based on the use of the data and how it scatters. So for the 8080 port, you can block 8080. I also go for 8081. I don't like that one. I also go for 9070, 56, 53, 333, since that was the recent extension of the, it was the APT. I said it was APT 23 the other day in a show for the malware show, but it was actually APT 10 and APT 12 who are responsible for the variations of the 333 port having a transport stream data malware thing that was streaming like TV data and like low level data out to command and control centers in China. So that's the thing. So I block 333, also like 52, 53, 56, 30, 1337. Yes, that's a port. I do 6667, 6677, you know, like 2000 for Android devices, 2001. I also do, like, sometimes I go into the 5-digit ports too. Not many people do those because they're mostly hooked up to like lower level circuitry. So it would be like, you know, physical cables would be accessed by the 5-digit ports. So you would have cabling, Ethernet, things plugged into your TVs, devices, smart devices, things like that. But I just throw them in there sometimes just to be funny, because most people would look at that and be like, why are there 5 digits on that? It's like, you never know, literally, until somebody ends up hacking it and it becomes a mess. You don't want to discover it that way, is basically the point. You don't want to find out that something was always a problem just because no one saw it, you know? Yes, this is coffee. Yes, it's nighttime. Hello, have we met? So, yeah, so it basically, like, you would type in ports like that. Let's see, what else? Oh, I actually include 21 sometimes, and 1001. 1000 and 1001 are lesser known ports for the inception of processes. So basically when a process begins, it's running on 1000 or 1001 in Android. So I just throw those in there because even if nothing is really running through them specifically, I just kind of set the block there so that anything trying to come in as like a port receiving would actually have that blocked off. Ideally, I would remember how to write in the alien packet blocks, but that was a very long time ago and I'm gonna have to brush up on that. But yeah, alien packets, just so you know, are packets that are outgoing from a port. Like for example, you have an IP address, right? You have a server, you have a host, whatever. And supposing the standard port is like 52, 53, 69 or something like that. An alien packet would be coming from a port that looks like the one that's standard use, but is like right before it or right after it. So it kind of looks a little wonky coming from there. So you'll get a port packet from like 71. It'll be like the same IP address, same host, same place. And then it'll just be like from port 71. It's like, what the fuck is 71? Like, isn't this the scan on the relay said it was 69? Why is it 71? So that's an alien packet. It's just like, what is this doing here? So it's a packet that goes out into the outgoing field for someone to receive. So it's sort of like, oh, well, that's kind of a weird reroute, but there it is, and that's basically how that is. It's also something that can be difficult to identify as a packet source. So not only is it like kind of off kilter where it's coming from, it's sort of like, how did that get there? That's what makes it an alien packet. So thank you so much, Bekono100 Bekono. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for your hearts. Very grateful for you. So we can continue on like that, but I want to get into also this part of it. We want to set up, and then when you type set block, it's SET and then space block, just the word block. And then you want to type $, and then I want to say it's process ID. It could be process ID, or you could just like literally type $ process and see what it grabs as a blob. Sometimes I like to throw a star in there. I don't know how it parses because each operating system will parse, like I want to say they're called globs, right? Globs or blobs. I want to say it might be blob. I don't remember. But if you include like a star or something, it'll just pull whatever data has that term that you mentioned in that. So if it's a process list, if it's active processes, if it's latent processes, if it's anything that's going on in the background, process IDs, process caches, you can kind of try to work that into the bash, the bash instruction to say, okay, set block on process ID, 1001010 or 1000101. The reason why you would do that is because those processes are also access points. They're like vectors, kind of, entry points, places where people can see those IDs and then inject them. So if you block the access points for those specific injectable processes, it makes it kind of like those processes aren't able to activate in a way where, they can stay active long enough to be injected, is my understanding of it, because I don't really know how I figured this out, but I kind of broke something when I did it. Not my hands or anything, right? But like part of the machine stopped operating a certain way. It was almost like the process would have this weird shutdown, or like something about it would shut down, like a thing that was going on as the process was already running. So for example, like if I'm running TermUX and TermUX has a set positioning or like data cache for a process, 1001010, right? Or 1001001, or so on and so forth. If any sequence of numbers has an assigned like cache and protocol delivery for a process to interact with certain things, you can set the block on the process to kind of trip it and interrupt it at a certain time. And I guess, I don't know if I got this right, but like I guess what happened was the process would trip itself before any significant like access to it could be accessed. And it's like if you open the windows in TermUX each time that this is programmed into it in the background, that will trip it each time the window is open. So it's kind of also in arbitrary timing. It's kind of just like the thing will shut down and acclimate and, like, you know, start running again based on the use of other programs, other windows and things like this. So I had figured out that this process may have also inadvertently tied in with VPN processes and encryption processes that were running in the background that would maybe restart or refresh themselves in order to, like, keep certain things encrypted, or to, I guess, ingratiate the encryption to other applications that would be running at some point. Meaning that if Windows kept opening in the TermUX live sessions that were running, then that would keep tripping the mechanism. And if someone were trying to run an injection attack on anything remotely on my machine, then they wouldn't have time to access the same process ID or the same process in a continuous state, which I thought was hilarious. I theorized it. Again, this wasn't something that I was for sure about, but I could tell that it was impacting the way the machine was running afterward. It just seemed different. So, so it made me laugh. I thought that was, you know, a real kicker. That was funny. But yeah, I don't know. There were people visibly upset walking near me the next day, and I wasn't sure if maybe I did something right on account of their negative reaction. So I don't know. It was a weird time in my life that I've since tossed behind me. But yeah, yeah, IRL stalkers are a byproduct of a successful block of an attack, by the way. So at least I can vouch that that is something that happens. You know, you have people following up to see if they can get within a good Bluetooth range, even though they could just buy an extender, you know, for whatever it is they're trying to do. Yeah, so you can look up these processes by typing in, hold on, let me get the window open here. Ooh. Oh, hold on, let's type in. So you can actually look these up by getting into your top processes. So top is like a systems process list. So top looks like this, right? You just type top into the terminal, check out your system processes, and that will usually tell you what's going on. However, you can also, instead of blocking like the literal processes, because it doesn't really work that way, there's another way that you can look things up, and I want to say it's, what is it, PID? No, it's not PID. What was the thing I used to look that up? Most of this stuff, like, I'm verbalizing it, but a lot of this stuff is mental. Not in the UK, like, poggers kind of way. Someone called me a yank yesterday. Thank you for that. Yes, I am the yank. Okay. So, basically, this is something that you can look up in, you can look it up in a system process reader thing. Like, it'll tell you stuff. No thanks on the co-host. Sorry, dude. What the hell is that thing? A lot of this stuff is usually like mental, like people think it and they don't sit here and like talk it out loud. So I guess it's kind of funny that I'm doing that, but this particular thing can be learned. Who called me a yank? Pekono, someone who had joined my IRC channel that I run, was making fun of me. Was making fun of me for being an American, because he's not. So, yeah, he joined in from another place. So, so thanks for liking the live, by the way. That was cool. What is that? There is a package that will actually print out system processes, and it's not top, and it's not like BC or like a Midnight Commander or anything like that. It's a different set of data, but I don't fuck, man. I hate when that happens, because, like, I knew this stuff literally, like, it was, like, written on the back of my eyelids. I could wake up from a dead sleep and know this stuff. And it's so funny how as you do this stuff and you get more comfortable with it, you tend to forget things that you aren't actively practicing every single day. So, so wait, okay, there's PWD for the file path. There's push D, oops, yeah, I wasn't supposed to type that, okay. Push D for no directories, okay. This is difficult. This is difficult for me right now, hold on. Was it, let's just type PID, pip ID PD. Oh no, not proot. I'm like installing packages now. This is what it's like. We're gonna try and guess the package that I'm supposed to be installing as we're installing it. That's what we're doing. So this thing is running an installation. It looks cool and everything, but there's that. What is this playlist? So, I mean, there's all that. There's also, oh, apparently I misspelled it or something. So I'm looking at the Beamon feed, and it's set to TCP, which I don't like, but whatever. Not a fan of TCP. Okay, anyway, I'm getting sidetracked, and I'm like this close to installing Nmap and just showing you how to use that instead. This whole thing with figuring out the process IDs, or the system process IDs, the cache locations and everything. If you don't have the name of the program, you're gonna be sitting there for like a half hour trying to figure out, like, okay, well, where do I find it? And it's like, I'd rather not have you stare at me for a half hour not doing anything. So so I am installing Nmap actually, but yeah. So there's that, and oh, there it goes. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what Nmap is the packet scanning tool. It's a probing tool. It's a TCP IP scanner and port scanner specifically for certain IP addresses. You can couple it with other applications, like I want to say Hydra has like a plugin or something. It's some sort of like input thing for Nmap. Nmap is like a package that can run on its own as a port scanner, but it can also simultaneously be included as like an invocation or a package call in other applications. So you will find Nmap in RustScan, for example. It has package libraries installed in RustScan, and everyone relies on RustScan for a quicker scan, despite the fact that Nmap not only is the original, but it's way more thorough. So there's that. You know what else I like about Nmap scans? Like, you don't have to include as many arguments to get more data. Like in RustScan, if you include too many arguments, you actually trip up the entire package stream. It's something that'll like pull data and then like not know how to get like more of it without kind of exceeding like a parameter, if that makes sense, because my guess is the way it's written is only to respond to certain commands and not the full set of commands from the Nmap thing. So Nmap, you can argue left and right. You can have the verbose arguments, you can include the addresses, but also the port specifications and whether or not you want a quiet mode on or not, meaning that Nmap will actually include a stealth mode so that your IP address and other things are not directly translatable from your presence on any one server in the case that you're scanning it. But I didn't tell you that. I just, you know, pointed it out as a specification and a technicality that I thought was kind of cool. So, you know. There's also a packet tracing method that isn't available in RustScan. I think you have to like include something else in RustScan to specify that you even want like, you know, a SYN-ACK read, where Nmap is just like, here you go. And you kind of want SYN-ACK reads because they're explaining to you what is going on the server that you're even looking at. It's not just feeding you ports, it's showing you like the activity and what it is that you would need to know about what's going on there. So it's pretty cool. I mean, this got way off track though, because even though these things are inclusive and like important and pertinent to what we're talking about, you're gonna use Nmap to figure out which ports to block. You're gonna use Nmap to figure out like what else you would want to include in your bash list if you were setting up block parameters, right? At least that's what we would be using it for here, right? And you know, if there's anything else that you could use Nmap for, I mean, that is at your discretion. I'm not going to be the one to tell you what to do, but I would say just don't abuse it. Don't abuse Nmap. Don't do it. And as for any other tool that you can use, I mean, there are a number of packages that you can look into to actually like bring information to you in order to better fulfill your parameter space. Like if you wanted to look up where certain process IDs run, like where their cached storages are on like a network map, or not a network map, a datagram for cache storage. So you would be looking into like, I want to say they're bit spaces, right? Bit spaces, like the lower levels of data that translate from electricity into binaries and you know, whatever, like ASCII space holders and things like that. You would want to look at those and see what those IDs are translating to, and it's usually like, I want to say it's like an 8-digit number usually. Like, don't quote me on that, but it's about 8 digits. And this is what you would also be including in that data set in order to continue whatever it is that you're doing. So, I mean, it's a lot of fun to check it out. It's fun to get into it, but not having a point of reference and then realizing that you also shouldn't get into the habit of trusting people with your machine, especially if you break things. Like, it's better to actually read the manual or like hear it from someone and be like, okay. And like, you don't even have to show that you're paying attention in that sense, like in that context. You can just try it later. You know what I mean? You can like stay put, listen to what they have to say, and then give it a try later. The reason being is the more you trust people with your tech, you can either make best friends or like the worst enemies that you can have. So to remain kind of neutral without all the drama that's known to be present in the information security field in the first place, you can just collect the tools. And how do you collect tools? You learn about them. It's like, duh. Anyone trying to gear you into a friendship-based information security habit is not understanding what this is really about. and then like expecting you to be able to do the work based on only what they like told you to break into yourself without any forewarning or foreknowledge, I mean, you're more than likely to break something and then have to run to someone for help that way. So it's kind of better to read stuff first, get acquainted with it at least, figure out what it is you're even trying to do, and find a way to relax your mind into the process of like, you know, the potential of breaking something. Like you want somebody to hype you up and be like, yeah, no, it's fun, give it a try. But you don't want to go back to that person and say, hey, I broke this. And they're like, oh, okay, I'll fix it for you. And then have them like implant something in your chips, because it can happen. You have to be somewhat isolated and solitary in your mind and heart space to be able to operate effectively as a hacker. I'm going to be the one to tell you that. Because that kind of mentality is actually what hackers don't want you to know, because they're afraid that that kind of mentality is going to breed more independently focused and more selfish behavior. But let's be for real, you don't have to be an asshole to be a good hacker. You just have to be selfish where it counts, which is not showing your hand to other hackers. You have the option to be open and transparent. I don't think that's a bad thing, personally, but I also see how easy it is to exploit. So are those people worth your trust is the question you'd be asking yourself at the end of that formulated idea, that you arrival at any conclusion like that. So, I mean, that's technically a political thing and not a tech thing. It's also a philosophy thing. So if you're feeling philosophical about stuff like that, I guess that's your conversation. But yeah, I want to know what the IR setting is. Oh, never mind. Okay. I want to say it's either like, I don't know if IR stands for information recursive poll or something, but it seems to be broken down into like a quantity of 1,000 for this particular setting, so I don't know. I couldn't know without looking it up, so I guess I'll do that. Let's actually look it up here. Oop. I think that was Molshad Doma. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so IR. So for those of you who are wondering, like, oh, well, is this all hacking? Yes, it's literally just looking stuff up on a computer by yourself, really quietly, most of the time, and just like learning stuff and learning how to break stuff. Or how to fix stuff because it's broken, inherently. Born broken, right? So, let's see. Okay, so IR is it's the numerical host at the thing there. There you go. Yeah, so, it is a relay, it's a port relay though. It's a numerical port reference and not what I thought it was. But I guess R as a relay or recursive could be, I don't know if they're interchangeable or what, but whatever. So, I mean, I guess that's, okay. I kind of wanted to just do a quick show on this and like talk about Bash as something that you can edit. You know, everyone shies away from editing your files. And, you know, like the next one you should check out, which I'll do a show on too, is the WPA supplicant, the Wi-Fi supplicant for machines that maybe have an error, like getting into their Wi-Fi or not being able to connect to certain Wi-Fi connection spots or access points. So you would actually go into the WPA supplicant file, which is literally like a notepad text file, and it's just like WPA, you know, supplicant request data from, and then you type in the user, you know, Wi-Fi name, the WPA setting, and then like the password if there is one. Or sometimes you'll be prompted for that in a separate prompt. It really depends on which operating system you're using, but you would probably type in the password into the file because that's just like intuitively sound. And then after you type in the password, you would save the file. More than likely, if for something that you plan on repeating the use of and it's not like a public Wi-Fi hotspot and it does have a private password, you may want to either encrypt the file or delete it altogether. You don't want to leave that stuff out in the open, because then other people could stumble upon that and have access to stuff that should remain more or less kind of private for obvious reasons. And thank you for joining my live. And if you are, using a WPA supplicant file, you just want to make sure that whatever it is you type in is more or less accessible and doesn't have, it's accessible for you, but maybe not for others. So you may want to encrypt it with PGP, which is the new PG, or GNU, the new subset of the official Linux kernel, which is patented, and like new plus Linux is the new kernel, and then the flavors of it that became open source and modifiable by the public, which doesn't have as many proprietary restrictions on it as, say, a Unix box like an Apple machine would have. So there is that. There's a lot of stuff that you can look into for stuff that you, I guess, would take interest in terms of editing files and learning the difference between the file subsets. But as I said, if you're going to do stuff like that, just take a copy of the original file so you can replace it in the case that you write something wrong, break something. You want to have backups. If anything, what you can do, if you really are in panic mode and you want to make sure you have a set of every file, you can copy the more crucial files that would be most likely to break from editing into a folder on a USB drive and just carry that around as the backup for repairs. And then you can be your own technician and be like, aha, I have, the extra copy of what it is that I just broke, and now I can put it back and everything's fine, So, I mean, you have options. It's a lot of fun to try it out, and it's a pretty rewarding experience when you finally get, where you're trying to go with it. So anyway, this has been Tired Goth. Thank you for tuning into the impromptu live computer show that I felt like doing tonight, and I'll catch you guys later. Tune in to the Patreon in the morning. I do Sunday Patreon posts each Sunday morning, and you can also check out the content I'm going to be uploading for the Malware Show computer show, the various behind-the-scenes shows that I do, the blurbs that I do, the Threat Intel 101 and 102 series. The 101 series is a bit shorter. They're like short little blurbs, kind of like what you find on TikTok. And the 102 series is a bit more extensive. We get into, the discourse of certain attacks that I've been privy to, have witnessed, and would be very interesting. I'm interested in putting them in a threat model, but I feel they would be very interesting in most modern day threat models. So stay tuned for those. Thank you so much for the likes, the gifts. Thank you for all of your presences here. Thank you for sharing my live and for participating. And thank you so much for following me, for paying attention to my work. If you haven't followed me yet, go follow me right now. I'm trying to go viral. So tell all of your friends about my shows, my lives, and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks so much for being here. Bye.